Welcome back to ADHDKC Conversations, where we talk about real life experiences, expert insights, and practical strategies for navigating ADHD.
We're so glad you're here. I'm Caroline Danda.
And I'm Kristen Stuppy. And today's episode is one I think so many parents are going to identify with.
We're very excited. I'm honored to have the pleasure of introducing Adam Tilove. He is a certified executive coach, author, and former head of school. So I'm sure he's got some stories to tell, who has a decade of experience leading independent schools.
He also brings something incredibly important to this conversation, his own lived experience with ADHD. And will be really appreciated in this conversation. He was diagnosed as an adult, like many of us.
And Adam developed the neurodiscipline framework, and that helps bridge that frustrating gap between knowing what to do, because I know we all know what to do, but then it's about implementing and executing it. And so that's what the neurodiscipline framework is about.
Yes, and he's joining us not only as a guest, but also as a new ADHDKC board member. He's just jumping right in, and he's going to be speaking at an upcoming parent group event.
Fantastic. So welcome, Adam. We're so glad you're here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Yeah. Well, you spent 11 years as head of school. That's a unique vantage point. I'm sure, as Caroline already said, you have lots of stories. But what did you see kind of over and over repeatedly that changed how you think about kids with ADHD?
So that's a really interesting question, and there's two ways that I can come at it. So first of all, I just want to say that one thing we read over and over in report cards is so much potential unfulfilled, needs to try harder, this kind of thing, where teachers are recognizing you got smart kids that aren't achieving and they're not quite sure why. Sometimes we see these kids are struggling, they're disruptive, they're checked out but one thing that I noticed is that often put them in the right environment and they really thrive. So for example, I had one student, he graduated from the school and decided not to go to college. And 99% of the kids that graduate from the school go to college. It's once every 10 years or so that someone decides not to go to college. And this kid said, I don't like reading. I will not thrive in college. I'm going to do my own thing. And he went into real estate and he has so much hustle. Everything in that environment fits who he is, right? So he's hustling, he's meeting people, he's charming, he's engaging, he's putting together complex creative deals, he's always on the move, and he is just killing it, just so tremendously successful because he put himself in an environment where he could be successful. And I think about that a lot, the fact that school is, I love schools, I love them, but in many ways, schools are not meant for kids. We ask kids to sit on their butts for 8 hours in a row. And I, even as an adult, take most of my meetings standing up, right? Like I just can't sit down that long. And kids also are at a biological age where they learn by talking. And they don't learn by listening. They learn by talking, by expressing these thoughts that they have, by bouncing them off other people, by reflecting on them, by changing the way they think. And most schools are teacher-centric, where the teacher is deciding who talks and when. And so for many of these kids with ADHD, they're really bright. They're not in an environment in which they can thrive. And this is, I don't want to go too far down the education rabbit hole. This is why I always felt like a progressive educator. I believed in project-based learning. I believe that learning should be hands-on and engaging, and that it should, to borrow from Daniel Pink, that it should have autonomy, mastery, and purpose, because that creates the intrinsic motivation that all people need, but especially kids with ADHD that are being asked to perform in this environment that's not built for them. That's part one. Part two is what I saw about myself, and that is that as a leader, I'm a visionary. I have incredible ideas. I can very clearly see the kind of education that I want, but I also had to come to terms with the fact that I was much better at envisioning strategies than executing them, right? That like the slow, consistent follow through was in many ways dreadful for me. And that I was in a good position as a leader because I had support of people that could help me implement these ideas. But I also started to really witness the effect on my staff when we sit at a meeting and I would just say, listen, I have an idea. And everyone would go like, God, here it comes, right? And I had to say, listen, sometimes I just want to discuss an idea without you guys running off to do them. But I think that as a leader and as a head of school, I had to come to terms with my own shortcomings in that area and what I needed to do to get myself in better shape as an executor and not as an idea person.
So it reiterates a little bit that sometimes there's a mismatch between the environment and the kid. And that can probably lead to a lot more behavioral issues and other things. And I have two questions kind of following up on your 2 points. I'm wondering a little bit about, hey, does that lead to kids getting misidentified or mislabeled? Because if you're struggling in the environment, then you may act out or you may underperform, and that may lead to just different ideas or labels. And then as a head of school, since you have so different experiences, did that impact how you were able to kind of work in the environment when some of these kids popped up?
Yeah. So the first one in terms of misdiagnosis, I frankly, I don't know. I think that there are kids with ADHD who are not diagnosed. I would suspect that sometimes there are kids that don't have ADHD that are diagnosed with ADHD because they just can't sit that long, right? So, I mean, one of the things about ADHD is that there is no blood test for ADHD. It's a behavioral, right? So the behaviors that you exhibit, and the fact is like, there's a continuum. There are people with very, very strong ADHD, and there's those generally people who are high performing that tend to drift or take off ramps or, you know, sort of get distracted from the work that they need to do. And all that's natural. I think that in all cases, one of the things that's most important is really thinking about the environment, and not just the kid's behavior, but behavior in what environment. So for example, a lot of parents have seen their kids watch a 4-hour football game and know every single statistic on every single play. But for some reason, they can't do their math homework, right? That just has to do with environment and focus and passion. I'm sorry if I'm digressing. I'll just say that there's a misunderstanding sometimes that attention deficit hyperactivity disorder doesn't quite fit how I feel about myself. I don't feel like I have attention deficit. I don't have hyperactivity. I don't really necessarily see it as a disorder. I just don't like the terminology of saying that it's a disorder. I see that I have a creativity and passion-driven hyper-focused disorder, if anything, right? I can spend 12 hours going down the rabbit hole on something interesting, but God, don't ask me to do my taxes.
Right. It does seem that ADHD, that title, doesn't necessarily do justice really to what the experience of ADHD is. And I'm thinking about, you said you were diagnosed as ADHD as an adult. And so I'm kind of wondering a little bit about having that diagnosis later on in life. Like, was that moment like for you? Was that an aha moment? Did that, what kind of clarity or not clarity did that give you?
So it's a fascinating question. I wouldn't necessarily say that I was late diagnosed. I would say that I was late to take it seriously. Yeah, I think I wasn't diagnosed as a kid, right? I was born in 1972. I'm 54 years old. The whole language around ADHD, diagnosing it, finding medications for that I kind of missed that, right? And as it became older, I had learned how to manage some people call it white knuckle or whatever, but I learned to compensate. I learned to negotiate handing in papers late every single time. I learned to negotiate like handing in my homework late. Like figured out how to compensate as a young adult and as an adult to make up for these things. And so I sort of said, yeah, I'm probably ADHD, but everyone's got something. Side note here, my father died a couple of years ago, and my brother found this artifact in his desk somewhere. This is my report card from 1980. Yeah. And this is an incredible document because this is how the school that I did report cards at the time. Hand typed and handwritten, Xeroxed pages.
There's no grades.
No grades. I
kind of love that.
Amazing school. And that's how I feel as well. Like in a school, the grade is the least important thing. The grade, like a kid could get 5s and their grade would be a C. A kid could get 100, and a 0. Their grade would still be a C. But those are two entirely different stories about what's going on, right? So it's not about the grade. In any case, Don't talk to me about education because I'll get sidetracked. I just wanted to read 2 passages to you from this report card, if I may. In a somewhat hasty response to your question, Lord knows what the question was. It was 40 whatever years ago. The other day I said the improvement had been made in Adam's ability to collect his thoughts and to focus on the work at hand. In certain aspects of schoolwork, this has been true, but in truth, this is still not the case in any project that demands actual execution and follow-up. Many of Adam's brilliant projects and proposals have fallen by the wayside. Here, too, I must claim responsibility. So he went on there. And then later, he says, the difficulty Adam has shown with getting physical things done, whether it be hammering, weeding, moving something, even cleaning up, may well be maturity, but it bears watching. He does seem at a comparative loss during such activities, though, and I can only reiterate my advice earlier this year of encouraging him to follow through on every project he undertakes, that he may get a sense of the connection between idea and finished article. And this is my first ADHD diagnosis. What happened when I read this was that I was shocked. I was appalled. I was delighted. I actually found the teacher. He's in his 80s now. And I wrote to him and said that I read the report card and it was like a prophecy, because this report card describes me in a sense to this day. And I have worked very, very hard to build my execution engine to figure out how to overcome these things. But really, the moment when I said, my goodness, I need to get a handle on this, it wasn't the diagnosis. It was the recognition in the report card that I've been dealing with these same issues since I was 8 years old that really hit me.
Yeah, I think for so many of us, when we finally do get that diagnosis as an adult, and we've probably lived with all these things and we just think, well, that's who I am. That's part of me. But then you have that different lens to look back, and all of these things from childhood show this common theme that not only just makes us who we are personality wise, but shows what we had to overcome to become who we are. So you mentioned hyperfocus is your thing. If you're interested in something, for you, it would be education. You could hyperfocus and do really well with that strength to overcome some of the problems with follow through. Because if you enjoy it, you get that little dopamine hit every time you do things. So,
Right.
Great.
I mean, one of the other things, just to reflect back, is that ADHD is so much more than attention deficit and hyperactivity. I mean, for example, RSD, rejection sensitivity disorder, which I think has a huge comorbidity with ADHD in terms of, like, we don't often have a volume knob on our emotions, right? So there is not a movie that I can watch without crying. And people say it's charming, it's cute, it drives me crazy. I don't like it. I'm not proud of it. But it is just that when I feel something, it hits me. One of the things on this report card as well is just that I won't read it, but that I cried during reading circles, right? I was a fine reader, but I was always comparing myself, and I was crying, was very hard on myself. And I still am, and that's in there too. So I think for anyone watching this, it's really, I think, important to have a more expansive view of what ADHD means in all of its facets. And that it is really much more complex and far-reaching than just like I having trouble focusing on my homework.
That sounds like kind of a myth or a misconception of what ADHD is like, oh, I just can't focus, and that the only problem happens in school, right? Which is far from the truth. It often shows up in school more so because the environment you talked about. But I'm curious from, as a parent myself, and, we have parents, and I'm kind of curious about that development of perspective and kind of thinking about, like, even ADHD, how you see it across the lifespan and how parents can really support their ADHD kids, or, and if there's some misconceptions or conceptions actually that you'd love to share with parents to help them meet their kids where they're at.
Oh gosh, that's such a big question. I'm not
big
sure
question.
which direction to go with it. The name of my presentation that's coming up is the Smart Kid Paradox. And so one thing that I want to make clear, I think, is that being smart isn't always a benefit. And what I mean by that is I was very smart. I was very smart. And because I was smart and charming or whatever, if I do say so myself, I was able to bend rules. I was able to succeed in my test. I was able to participate in class. And I was able to do that while, as I said, like never doing homework, starting my papers late, like, all of these things, but I did fine. And what happens as an adult is that the world stops caring about how smart you are and starts caring about what did you get done. And that is hard for us with ADHD. That is suddenly like it's jarring. And it's jarring to go from school where there's so much emphasis put on being smart or getting good grades when really the world just doesn't care about ideas. Ideas are a dime a dozen, right? It cares about did you ship? Did you produce? What did you create? Is it done? And so I'll just go on another riff here. As a progressive educator, I was always very anti-homework. I saw homework as a waste of time, as extending the school's authority over kids at home when they have no right to do so, as an infringement on kids' ability to play and eat dirt and just get outside and do their own thing. I saw it as reteaching what had already been taught, and if it had been taught properly to begin with, they wouldn't have to do homework.
I know a lot of kids who would agree with you.
And studies show that too.
Yeah.
Until at least the high school level, homework does not help children.
Maybe, but I'm repudiating my own belief now. I'm repudiating my own belief. And my belief now is that homework actually is probably the most important thing. And it's not to reinforce learning. It's not about the content. In fact, I don't even care about grades. The fact is, I'm going to say something very unpopular for educators. Content really doesn't matter because eventually AI will just be in our earpiece. There'll be no need to know anything. The iCloud God in the sky will know everything for us, right? But what homework does is it's helped us execute. It gets us like regularly saying, I don't want to do it, but I'm going to anyway. And having that transition to saying, ugh, all right, here we go. And just to do it. And if it takes 5 minutes, that's enough. But it's about teaching kids to execute and that value of saying it doesn't matter how smart you are. What matters is what you can get done. That's why as much as I can't believe I'm now sharing this opinion because it's so contrary to what I used to believe, I think homework is critical in building that muscle of starting. And that's where we all get stuck, is just in the starting.
I will agree with that. But thinking back to you as a kid, and your teacher had this wonderful dialogue instead of just grades about how you had all these ideas and never finished them. Thinking back as a kid, how would homework have helped that?
I think if he had said, here's your project. This is your project. This is what you came up with. You had this brilliant idea, right? How do we make this happen? And the focus is like you have an idea. We are building the bridge between idea and finished object. And he's saying Adam needs to do that. But what if the scaffolding was there to say, let's think backwards. Let's backwards plan. What are all the things that need to get done? Which is the first thing that needs to get done? What's the smallest step in that first thing? How do we move the needle every day so that we can watch this progress, right? So it's the breaking down of a big complex idea into its tiniest pieces and saying, let's move the needle on this every day. And then the onus is still on me to do it. At that point, like it still might have that drag of saying, well, the idea was much more exciting than the execution, right? But the homework could have been you have laid out 10-minute projects every day that we've worked on together for you to bring this idea to execution. And I think that if I can't say I wasn't successful. I've been the head of 2 independent schools. I have a family, I have a house, I have a dog I have plants that are still alive. Like things are good. But I have to wonder, where could I be if early on I had learned to take a big complex idea, break it into composite pieces, prioritize, systematize, and start to execute on small ideas daily? Where could I be? And only God knows.
I think you're talking about developing habits.
Yeah.
To some degree.
I was going to say doing extracurricular activities in an area that you enjoy you could still build upon those skills. And for someone who struggles with organization, motivation, all those things, doing it in an area of enjoyment, whether that's a sport, a music, an art, a theater, something, I feel like you could still learn those things in a completely different arena than in the classroom where you could have some free time to work on those skills at school.
I'm not sure. I think there's a difference between an extracurricular activity, right? And the experience of conceptualizing and bringing a project idea to fruition, right? And we should have extracurricular activities. So critical to explore those things, whether it's sports or drama or theater or music. These are the things that sustain us. These creative passions are the things that sustain us through our life. But again, that feeling of saying, I have an idea and I'm gonna bring it to the world. I'm gonna bring it to life. What are all the little steps that I need to get it out of my brain and into the world? Is something that we should be teaching in school, or that parents should be able to support their kids in that. So being able to have a design, an architect's design of this bridge is important for us to think about. How do I help a kid with ADHD get these ideas into the world? Because we are idea people. We're people that see patterns, we see holes, we see needs, right? And we also, I'm an ADHD coach for entrepreneurs. And often we love to be entrepreneurs because we want to be our own boss, because we love the creativity, because we love the generation of strategies. But if we don't execute, our businesses fail. So the same things that make us want to be entrepreneurs undermines us in our success. So I think that it's never too early to start building those structures out and thinking about, look, we all know ways in which ADHD can be a superpower, but it can be a superpower if we address the super weaknesses. And if we don't, then I don't see it as a superpower. Like, we really need to build strategies around these things, or we can get stuck, and it's hard. The number one word I hear when I'm interviewing new clients is the word frustrated. It's very frustrating to have ADHD, especially as an adult, when you've lived so long with these ideas and you can't get them out. One more thing. I know I'm talking too long, but give me one more second. When I wrote my book, I didn't tell anyone I was writing it. Why? Because I have a lifetime of saying I'm starting this new thing and then not finishing it, and carrying that shame with me. They're like,
Right.
I said I was going to do this thing and I didn't do it. And so I've gotten to a place, and this might resonate for some people, where it's like, if I'm going to do this thing, I'm keeping it secret until it's done, because I don't want to live with the shame of another project that I started and didn't finish.
And that's so sad just to think of that, feels that rejection sensitivity, because you do have those years of trauma of not doing what you set out to do. And I don't think you're alone in that. Yeah. Unfortunately, you finished your book, which is great, but you could also flip and have an accountability partner who's asking you, nudging you, getting things done, because that is a tool that works for a lot of people. So
That does
I'm
help. That does.
so glad that you finished it, though.
Thank you.
And you have all these like visions and ideas. So I'm super excited that you're joining the ADHDKC board. And I'm curious, what drew you to this community?
I think that we all need community. We need to hear from each other. I think that there's strength in numbers, there's strength in hearing each other's stories, there's strength in being able to support each other. And for me, it just felt like where I want to be spending my energy and what I want to be learning about. It's where my passion lies right now. And it felt really exciting to get involved and to be asked to be on the board. And I'm really hoping to give as much as I can to the community.
Well, we're super excited that you've joined the board. You're a natural fit and can't wait to see all the things that, again, as a community, we can do together. I've just joined the board myself, and I'm already finding this excitement within the community of how we can work together to get things done. So talk back to your execution. Like, when we do things together, sometimes it's not all on one person to do it all. And it's amazing what we can do when we're depending on each other, when we're interdependent.
Yeah.
So very excited to have you.
The concept of body doubling, which is
Yes.
simple and so profound. I'm going to sit here and watch you work, and you sit here and watch me work, and let's just work. And that's pretty profound. I don't know who came up with it, but good job.
Yeah, I completely agree. You mentioned that you did recently published a book, Split Second, Stop Stalling, Start Doing. She's got a copy of it. I happen to get a copy of it on my Kindle Unlimited. So it's free if you have Kindle Unlimited, if you pay for that service, but you can buy it on the Kindle. It also, if you read it, there is a place where you can download all these amazing forms so that it doesn't have to be like, I'm reading it and it's going in, but then I'm done with it. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about kind of what the core idea, what are you going to get out of this book?
So I think what it comes down to me was like a deep introspection into all of the ways that I have failed in my life and what it comes down to. And often there is a moment, like we all think about discipline as being this thing that lasts all day. We're disciplined or we're not disciplined. Starts when you go to bed, when you wake up. And really what it comes down to are these split seconds where we react mechanically, like neurologically, a split second, right? We're like, oh, I'm going to do this thing, but let me check my phone first. Boom. I'm going to check my email. Oh, look, there's I know I should do this thing, but the dishes are dirty, right? So I'm going to do some productive procrastination and feel good about it. And like, it all comes down to this split second. So the book is about analyzing what happens in that split second. Like, what are the emotional loads that we're carrying into the work? How do we react to that work? What are the off ramps? I said, like, how do we allow ourselves to escape from entering into the most important project? And then what are some techniques that we can use to break through that split second? And I mean, the premise is that like, you don't need 18 hours of discipline a day. You need about a 1 minute of perfect discipline, split apart over 20 instances. You need to be able to turn one split second into a 3-second interval where you can actually make a choice, where you're not reacting to the work, but you're actually able to make a choice around it. And that's the book.
That's fantastic. I don't remember where I first saw the word procrastivity, but basically you're doing an activity to procrastinate because you feel like you're getting something done. You're doing those dishes, even though a priority would be something else. So I love, and I have started reading the book. I have not finished it yet, but I love just taking that split second to stop and actually consider and do what you need to do. So your upcoming talk on July 14th is going to be The Smart Kid Paradox, which you already mentioned. And it's such a powerful title. You kind of gave a little hint to it, but just a little preview more about what you're going to talk about without giving the whole talk away.
I think I want to really sort of like get into the way in which our kids and the parents of these kids, often it's, genetic. So the way that we have to behave in school, what works for us, what doesn't work for us, the effects of that over time, the way in which adult life both mimics and doesn't mimic school, the ways in which smart kids suffer from their own successes, and the way how, when those moments come up, how we react to failure, and really trying to provide pathways so that really smart kids that have ADHD can be as successful as they possibly can along the way and into adulthood.
I think that's something that all parents would love to hear. I know that my kids are a little bit older now, but still in the learning phase, but out of the main school parts. And I have a PhD and I have 3 kids that have ADHD that all hated school. I'm like, I don't understand. And so that was something that was really hard to reconcile, somebody who did well in school and loved school. And so that was kind of something that I had to work on as a parent, is how do I help my kids who I felt were pretty smart, but again, really struggled in school. So I think this talk will be really helpful for a lot of parents.
Well, and I hope that if there's any teachers who are interested in their listening, that they'll pop into, because I think that there are things for teachers to understand and consider that can really help kids with ADHD. They can be that teacher who understands them and supports them and makes them feel successful and helps them thrive. And, if a kid has a couple of those teachers through the course of their school career, it can make an enormous difference in their self-esteem and their success. So I hope that I'll share some things that will be helpful to teachers as well.
I think this will be a fantastic talk. And you're also going to be giving away a free something. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I'm going to be developing a 1-pager of like 5, like basically a flow chart of things that parents can use the day after the talk and try and implement with their kids, and hopefully make it like very practical. And I'll also be giving away some of those documents that Dr. Danda showed, and some of the resources from Split Second. So I'll be putting it together and hopefully be able to deliver a nice little gift basket to everyone who sticks around and watches.
I can't wait. And I appreciate, because one of the things I've taken from our conversation so far is you're all about the action, right? Action and execute. And you basically said, I'm going to give you 5 things that you could execute on once you leave this talk. And so I love having the snapshot, because I also know that sometimes I'll listen to people and I'll hear the things and it sounds great, but then I'm like, what is that take home message? What did they say? How do you do it? So
Yeah, then what?
thank you
Then
for,
what? Right?
yeah. So I really appreciate the time and the effort you're going to put into that, to have that really meaningful takeaway.
My pleasure. If I can help a couple parents and a couple kids and make everyone feel that much more successful and ready, it would be a great feeling for me.
Yeah. And for all you parents out there who are interested in attending, I will, of course, put all of this in the show notes and how to do it or how to sign up
And
for
if
it.
you want to sign up for it, you can go to our ADHDKC website and sign up. It's July 14th, 6:30 p.m. It's online. It's free. So just click RSVP and save your spot. Execute the action. Do it today. Don't delay.
And last plug, the book is available on Amazon now. Adam Tilove, there's my name, Split Second. And it's an easy breezy read, and I think you'll get some takeaways from it.
Yeah. And I can drop that in the show notes as well. And the talk is going to be the Smart Kid Paradox, why school is painful for kids with ADHD and what parents can do about it.
We hope to see you there, and you can learn more about Adam at his website, Neurodiscipline. And I think we'll probably also put a link to your LinkedIn and other resources and to your books. So we'll have all the resources that we need.
Great.
So we really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today. And we can't wait to see you on July 14th.
Thanks so much. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. And thank you to everyone who's listening. If this episode was helpful, please share it with another parent who might need it.
And don't forget to subscribe to ADHDKC Conversations so you don't miss an episode.
Until next time.
See ya.